They're consulted, sought out, reported on, and seemingly help inform public policy. Joining us now to detail how they make that happen, in Vancouver, British Columbia via Skype, there's Jason Clemens. He's Executive Vice President at the Fraser Institute. And with us here in studio, Trish Hennessy, Director of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives Ontario office, and Rohinton Medhora, President at CIGI, the Centre for International Governance Innovation in Waterloo, Ontario. And it's good to have you two here in our studios in Leaside. Jason, nice to meet you via Skype to BC. Jason, let me put you to work off the top and just make sure we're all speaking the same language here. What's a think tank?
Well, it's a research organization that's aim is to provide information to the public broadly, policymakers, bureaucrats, really any interested Canadian or any interested person in a particular region that you're doing the research in. In many ways, think tanks have filled a vacuum that has existed at universities for probably the last 3 decades, perhaps even 4 decades, in terms of applied research. What think tanks do is really applied to the daily lives of individuals. And so unlike the academics who are in universities, we don't do a lot of conceptual work, if any conceptual work. Again, our work is sort of on the ground, day-to-day, practical applied research.
Trish, how much of that would you sign on to in either agreeing or disagreeing with what you guys are about and what you do?
Yeah, I think that's it. We do research. I look at us sort of as an interlocutor between the academic world and the public policy world. In many cases, I know certainly with our think tank, we can be lead investigators on academic projects. We have research associates with academics in universities across the country. But there's this term in academe called knowledge mobilization, where sometimes academics want to actually go beyond their internal circle and try to influence public policy, and that's where we're the interlocutor. That's where they turn to us.
Okay. Rohinton, how much impact do you think tanks such as yours have on policy in this country?
In our case, we're primarily focused on international issues. And so our audience tends to be around the world, but since we're located in Canada, and since everything that happens around the world affects Canada as well, we are keenly aware of the Canadian dimension, and we actively work with, as my colleague said, not just officials and governments, but also NGOs and others more broadly that connect Canada to the world.
So you are casting your net much more widely, say, than the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, which may want to influence a particular measure in an upcoming Ontario budget, let's say. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah, Trish, is that fair to say as well?
Well, I would just say jurisdictionally, they have a different focus, whereas we're national and provincial and sub-provincial in nature.
Sub-provincial?
Yeah.
So you guys, I mean, I know of your national aspirations.
We'll do municipal work as well.
You do, okay. Jason, how do you decide what it is that the Fraser wants to focus on?
Well, that's a pretty involved process. So every year our research directors go through a process of asking academics that they work with, our senior fellow network, which is over 50 now, looking at the landscape of issues that are current this year and in the following year. And then we go through a process of collegially talking about the priorities of those projects. This year, for example, we had over 200 ideas for projects that came through our senior fellows, contracted researchers, friends, and our internal researchers primarily. And we can only do about 75 to 80. And so we go through a process of prioritizing those projects and thinking about what are the key projects, what are the important issues that we're going to deal with over the next year. And then we set that agenda, and then we go about creating a budget and hopefully raising enough money to do that kind of research and outreach over the course of the coming year. So it's driven almost entirely internally, although we do quite a bit of external talking and discussions about issues that are of importance to the people who are important to us, academics, our senior fellows, and other folks in the network who see issues on the horizon.
And I'm always curious as to how these things get decided. Is it purely democratic, where everybody in the organization gets a vote and the majority rules, or are some people more equal than others?
Well, I don't know if I'd say some people more equal than others. It's a discussion. It's a discussion about, we have specialists in tax and healthcare and education, and so they have their ear to the ground, and they're talking to their network of senior fellows who also have their ear to the ground. On the other hand, there are people who are outside of that sphere who may see issues that they don't, including the president, including myself, including some of our senior fellows. And so it's a dialogue. It very much in that way is a Socratic dialogue about working collegially through. We have so many resources available to do projects in a particular area. We always want to do more projects than we have resources available. And so how can we best figure out what are the priorities? And again, our experience over the last 2 decades is that having more voices in a collegial discussion is better than having 1 or 2 people figure it out for the whole organization.
Gotcha. Trish, let me ask you, when you do a report, for example, on a particular policy issue, I mean, ideally, you want to engage members of the public, you want to engage stakeholders, you want to engage politicians, opposition politicians too, others who might have an interest in the issue. But really, at the end of the day, is it all about focusing on the government?
I think it's a mix of everything there. Certainly for our focus and what we're trying to accomplish in any given strategic work here. So yeah, we'd like to know that we're influencing some government policy in a positive direction. But we also engage with civil society organizations, with social justice movements, and with academics, like I said, across the country. So at various times, a different report might try to achieve a different aim.
But is it possible that as you cast the net wide, you may give information to social justice groups, which will then use that information to lobby government? In other words, at the end of the day, it's really all about getting a government, or maybe a cabinet minister in particular, to do what you would like them to do, isn't it?
Our focus is on progressive public policy. So yeah, we are, in terms of that, we advocate for progressive public policy. We educate social movements. So we do feel like we're part of this broader democratic process where there are a number of pillars of democracy, and we as a think tank are, among those pillars.
Rohinton, I think every think tank says they're nonpartisan. Are they?
Depends how you define nonpartisan.
Okay, how are you defining it?
If by nonpartisan we mean do they subscribe to a certain political party, I'd suspect most think tanks are not. But if you think of nonpartisan as where on the spectrum have you positioned yourself, then I'd say many think tanks are not nonpartisan. If I read something from the CCPA, I know I'll get a robust social democratic viewpoint. If I read something from the Fraser Institute, I know I'll get a robust market-oriented viewpoint.
How about CIGI?
In CIGI's case, we have deliberately not positioned ourselves by viewpoint. We've positioned ourselves by the issue. So what we look for are gaps in global governance, for example, sovereign debt management or managing the internet. We really don't have ways of managing these things. And then we go out and consider the different options which are ways forward. Sometimes they can be highly interventionist, other times they cannot be. So we've defined nonpartisan in a much more traditional sense, which is that you couldn't pin on CIGI a label such as right-wing or left-wing.
Jason, I think everybody would put a label on your organization. It's unabashedly, they would say right-wing. Do you subscribe to that?
No, but part of it is I don't know what right-wing means. So some of the things I think people would ascribe to being right-wing, if they actually read our research and looked at it, I think they'd be very surprised. I mean, we can give a whole number of examples over time.
Well, what would you prefer to call it? Libertarian?
No, we're definitely not libertarian. Our approach is we're an economic think tank. And
so where are you on the political spectrum?
Well, we don't worry about the political spectrum. What we worry about are picking issues that are important to Canadians and then using an accepted quantitative approach to asking and answering questions. In fact, our motto here, and we have it in our boardroom so that all our staff see it on a regular basis, which is, if it matters, measure it. And so if you look at most of our research, it's measurement approach, because as we learn as researchers, you can't argue about 2 + 2 = 4. What you can argue about are values, whether it's social democratic values or libertarian values or conservative values. And so our approach is to quantify things. And so if we want a better education system, the approach that we use is let's measure how our current education system is doing, then let's measure how other education systems are doing, and try to find and identify ways to improve the Canadian education system. The same approach on healthcare, on taxation, and others. So I think using the left-right divide is difficult both and not very helpful, to be frank, because both there is a great deal of ambiguity about what left and right means. For example, I think there's a whole set of issues that people would be very surprised that the results of the research that CCPA does would be in line with the research that we do.
Okay, well, just before I get to them, let me just follow up on you, because anybody who's sort of
Sure.
left of center right now is looking at this conversation and saying, give me a break. They're a right-wing think tank. Why don't they just fess up? So let's see. You favor less as opposed to more government intervention in our economy and society. Fair to say?
No, in fact, if you look at a report we just did last month on policing levels, what we tried to look at and measure is what is the optimal level of policing levels in cities across the country. And what we found was there were cities that are under-policed and there are cities that are over-policed. And so the policy implications are about getting the policing levels right, not lower or higher, but getting them right. And so, as I say, there was a number of cities where what we said was there's not enough police. And in other cities, we said it looks like there's too much police. That's not about less government for the sake of less government. It's about getting government right.
Okay.
Getting government right.
Trish, in the case of your organization, I don't know anybody who doesn't say, yeah, they're obviously a left-wing think tank. Do you sign on to that?
Well, first of all, can I just take up the issue of how we define nonpartisan?
Sure.
Because my definition would differ a little bit from yours. To me, nonpartisan means you don't have any political party horse in the race. You're not out there trying to shore up one political party over another. And so in that way, we're very nonpartisan. I think in the discussion...
Let me just hold you there. 'Cause
Yeah.
while you may not say you have a dog in the hunt, you pretty clearly don't ever want conservatives to form governments. Fair to say?
You know, we have seen examples of conservatives who are socially progressive, who really wouldn't mind implementing greater supports for the poor, the low income, that sort of thing. So I wouldn't say it's that black and white. And that's actually why I like that you're having this show today, because I think many times, you know, certainly the CCPA gets put in a talk show right up against the Fraser Institute, and we're both forced into that polarization, he said, she said, narrative where sometimes there are actually shades of gray. The question is it, you know, where are you on the ideological spectrum and what's behind that? What's underneath that? And underneath it, and we all have this in all of our organizations, and you have it in yours too, is we're all informed by a set of values. And our values might lead us to a different focal point.
Okay, so your worldview/values lead you where, do you think, on the political continuum?
Certainly, I would say center-left, and depending on the issue, and you know what we consider to be left-wing, right-wing does change over time. I mean, these are social constructs at the end of the day.
Well, Jason suggested that there were actually areas where your institute and his would actually agree on a public policy issue. I confess, I can't think of one off the top of my head right now. Can you think of one?
Well, maybe Jason can prompt my memory on that one. I do know that we've had several moments where the CD Howe has put out reports, and we're exactly on board there. Jason, what comes to mind for you?
Oh, sure. There's a whole list. I mean, we just recently put out some work on the complexity of the tax code, showing that the real costs of the complexity of the tax code are borne by low-income Canadians. And I was on a radio show with Seth Klein, and Seth agreed that the tax code's got to get simplified, particularly given that these costs are borne largely by low-income Canadians. In addition, the Institute has a 20-year history of doing work on drug and alcohol abuse, the problems with the prohibition against marijuana and other drugs, and that instead of it being treated as an addiction problem, it's treated as a criminal offense. And all of the economic costs that are associated with that. CCPA basically supported most of the work we were doing in the mid-90s on this issue, particularly in the downtown east side of Vancouver. So again, I think there's a lot of issues where when we focus on the empirical evidence that researchers, regardless of their value set, are going to be able to agree on what the data tells us. And that's where I think I would agree quite strongly with Trish about common ground. When we're asking similar questions, we should all be using a similar approach in terms of research protocols and methodology and how we answer questions. And when we focus on data, I think there is room for broad agreement on a number of issues.
Now, that's a fair and interesting point, but let me suggest that there will probably be commentators, Jason, who will say, well, of course the Fraser is against criminalizing drug use, They're a libertarian organization and they don't want the government involved in anybody's business. And of course, the CCPA might be for decriminalization or legalization of drugs because they see, they'll bring a left-wing understanding to it, the overt criminalization, for example, of things that ought not to be criminalized. So you two may end up at the same place, but can you appreciate that commentators may say you get there for very different reasons, masking your true motives?
Absolutely, and all of that is value-based. It's values-driven.
Okay. Let's talk money for a second here. Rohinton, where do you get your money from?
We have an endowment. When Jim Balsillie created CIGI in 2001, he provided an endowment that was matched by the federal government. And we also have grants from other donors and from the provincial government. So we have a mix of drawdown funds and an endowment that at least gives us a minimum level of stability.
So some well-off people, some tax dollars. What are the strings that come attached with that money?
None.
How do you know?
Because I run the organization and I'd know if that were the case. But here's the answer. The money comes for what we do, not how we do it. So the money comes for working on issues that make the world, and therefore Canada, a better governed place internationally for global public goods and bads.
So for suspicious people who say, well, you get money from the Conservative Government of Canada, therefore some of your reports might skew in that direction to satisfy them because they're your funder, you'd say what?
In that particular case, the endowment came when we had a Liberal government, by the way, and we don't get money on an ongoing basis from the federal government. But your question is a valid one in terms of the provincial government. You could ask the same thing. When we receive money, we have a quite rigorous process of making sure that we're comfortable with the money, we're comfortable with the conditions, and there are always conditions. They just are not conditions to do with research. So there are always conditions about where you can spend it, where you cannot. We have a board, we have a senior management and a board that takes these things very seriously. And we're not the kind of organization that gets so many small grants that we have to discuss the issue several times a year.
So money does not buy influence in your organization, you're confident?
Correct.
Trish, how about you? Where do you get your money from?
Our largest single revenue source is from individual supporters.
And
People
what would
donate.
be the largest check somebody would write you?
It can depend, but we have some well-off donors who support us and write fairly large checks.
Thousands of dollars?
Yes.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Do you get money from taxpayers, from the government?
So we don't actually get government grants directly, but we are partners on several SSHRC projects, and so indirectly we're part of government funding on that front. But just on several different SSHRC projects, they're short term. And very focused.
Gotcha.
And then different organizations donate to us as well, and foundations will give us grants for specific projects as well. So we have a very diversified funding base, and we've always felt that's really important. Because one of our core values is independence. We want to have a fully independent voice. And secondly, and I think we've seen this in Canada, especially over the last 10 years, if all of your eggs are in one government grant basket, you can disappear overnight.
Okay, let's find out how diverse, though, your funders are. For example, Corporate Canada, do they give you any money at all?
No.
So it's not that diverse. They don't like you, right? Corporate Canada doesn't like what you're selling, so they're not going to give you any money.
We haven't actually started a fundraising program to do that. Again, values driven. We take greater pride in getting donations from individuals over corporations, for instance. But to say all the corporations or all employers don't like what we do, I would actually take issue with that. We, for instance, in Ontario, we're working with communities on living wage calculations and developing employer recognition programs. And employers are very grateful that we're bringing a solid methodology so that they know when they're signing up to become a living wage employer. It's not just a number out of thin air. We're helping communities do that, and so that it's a number and a methodology, a way of arriving at that is reliable. So they don't entirely hate us.
They don't entirely hate you.
No.
That's an endorsement. Okay.
By the way, just
Gotcha.
one
Yes.
other thing. We are watched by others, and there is an organization now called Transparify that rates the financial acumen and transparency of think tanks around the world, and they have a 5-star rating. Incidentally, CIGI got was the only Canadian think tank to get 5 stars. But it's exactly about all of these issues. Who funds you? How frequently do you report your funding? How transparently do you report your funding? How easily understandable are your financial statements? So we are being watched by other independent organizations.
Okay, Jason, coming at you now. Where do you get your money from?
We get it from a combination of foundations, corporations, individuals, and families.
Any from any government in the country?
No, we don't take any money from government. We've had 2 experiences in the 40 plus years of the Institute in working with government on 2 specific issues. We found it very constraining, really not productive in terms of the culture of the Institute and how we identify projects and work on it. So not to say that we wouldn't, if there were particular circumstance again that arose, the 2 issues that arose, one was NAFTA. We were integrally involved in a whole set of background papers on NAFTA and free trade. And secondly was the emergence of the service economy. So we worked with the Department of Finance on a very large project, understanding how the transition to a service economy would affect the general economy. But outside of those 2 fairly large but very specific issues, we don't take money from government. We certainly haven't taken money from government for over 2 decades now.
And I mean, in the case of free trade, I mean, you were philosophically, spiritually, and in every other which way in favor of free trade, and therefore, I guess you thought it was not inconsistent to take money from the federal government of the day, since you agreed with where they were going. Is that fair to say?
Well, we have to be careful here about your lead-in. Well, our view was that when trade agreements are written correctly, and so that you've got transparency, that you've got a broad-based trade agreement, that you don't have a lot of special carve-outs and treatments for different industries, that it can be quite beneficial for all the countries involved. And so the federal government, working with us, identified a whole network of scholars who knew very specific areas that needed to be negotiated within the FTA and then NAFTA. And so we were a coordinating body to bring those academics together to think through, okay, what are the provisions going to be for telecommunications, for banking, for cultural industries, et cetera, et cetera. And so that was our role in that particular issue. But again, it was about getting the trade agreement right. I'm sure the folks at CCPA would agree that when you get a trade agreement right, most people, if not almost everyone, benefits. But you can negotiate pretty bad trade agreements that can have pretty bad effects on everybody.
Okay, Jason, let me try this. Let me try this follow-up, because I don't know if you saw the piece in the New York Times not too long ago, which mentioned that there were several think tanks in the United States which had taken money from foreign sources, and therefore the suggestion was that foreign sources don't necessarily have the same pure motives about U.S. public policy as, say, domestic sources would, and therefore there may have been a skewing of priorities as a result. Does the Fraser take any offshore money?
Well, we take money from outside of Canada. That's in part because about 10% of our activity is international. Similarly, CCPA takes money from organizations outside of Canada, and that's because part of their work, at least at the time, was international. And so the question needs to be on both sides, right? So if you're taking money from outside of Canada or outside the United States, is it because you're doing international work where there are people who are going to be interested in not just what's happening in your home country, but internationally? And so if you're doing work, for example, on international free trade agreements, in our case, it's on measuring economic freedom and the institutions of economic freedom globally, then there are people who are interested in us doing that work in their country. For example, a colleague of mine, is in the Middle East right now doing work on economic institutions in the Middle East. Well, we get money from the United States to help support that work internationally. So I think it's important to understand the nature of the work and then the source of the work.
No, I get it, but does that, obviously the question then becomes, does offshore money somehow influence what your potential message will be after the study is done?
No, absolutely. We have very strict protocols about, and I'm sure all the organizations on the panel do, about we put forward a grant proposal. It outlines the research we want to do. If they support it, that's the next time they're going to see the research is when it's done and published.
Okay, let me get, sorry, just a few minutes left to go here. I want to make sure I cover all the bases here. Trish, do you get offshore money?
I'm assuming that Jason's referring to trade, free trade discussions, that sort of thing. And so that's the only one that I would be aware of. Certainly our Ontario office doesn't get any offshore money. But we do have international trade experts who go around the world talking and are respected internationally on this front. And
Any
so
concerns?
potentially,
Any concerns about how it might look to the average citizen of the province or the country to see a provincial and/or Canadian national organization funded by a different country's interests?
I do think it really comes down to what was the specific funding for. And was it, for instance, most of the times when we get that sort of funding, it's so that we can actually meet with other or similar-minded organizations in other parts of the world, learn from each other. We are interconnected in a global social movement in that way and learn from what's happening there. So, I don't think we would want to become too inward looking on this front.
I presume you, dealing in international affairs, have money that comes in from sources outside Canada.
Actually, the overwhelming funding we have is, as I outlined, local, but on occasion, for the reasons you said, we do get some. For example, last week, we've struck a global commission on the governance of the internet. We were hosted by a media group in South Korea. But the arrangement was clear. They hosted us. The commission met on its own steam, and there was absolutely no connection between the work of the commission and the hosting by our Korean friends. And so the point is protocols.
Yeah.
Let me get each of you to take 30 seconds and just tell us, how do you know that you're succeeding at what you're doing? Rohinton.
We're succeeding if we increase the level of public participation and public knowledge on subjects, especially in my field, which are awfully sometimes distant and esoteric. And second, we're succeeding if we can demonstrate, and keep in mind in our business, attribution is a real issue. I don't think there's a think tank in the world that could point to any change and say, this is because of us. There are simply too many actors in a policy process. Bearing that in mind, one can tell a credible tale, and others would see through it if it wasn't credible and say, well, this is something. For example, the creation of the G20. For example, the movement we're making on sovereign debt mechanisms globally, on which I could look someone in the eye and say, CG played an important role to make this happen.
Trish, how about you? How do you know you're succeeding?
We're trying to influence the public discussion and ensure that there's a multiplicity of voices out there on any given issue. So just the fact that we actually get more demands for our time for public speaking, for mainstream media appearances than we can handle on any given day. That's a source of success because we really are interested in being out there. We're not looking just at a piece of research that sits and gets dusty on a bookshelf. But then we'll have other measures too, and it depends what. So, for instance, during the worst of the global economic meltdown, we focused our alternative federal budget on what a stimulus budget could look like. Well, we've felt it was a point of success when we saw the federal conservative government take up some of those measures that were outlined in our alternative budget. So, that could be a point. But also because we really do want, we try to do research for the people. Another measure is just how many people are coming to our events when we're talking, how many people are engaging with us on social media, and we're a real leader in the think tank world in terms of followership on Twitter, on Facebook, that sort of thing.
Okay. Jason, last 30 to you. How do you know you're succeeding?
Oh, I think our success measures would be quite in line with CCPA. Our role is to provide accessible information to Canadians so that they have better information so that they can make better decisions about what's going to improve their lives and the standard of living for the country. So we have both short-term and long-term measures. Many of them, as I say, echo Trish in terms of people coming to our website, Facebook followers, Twitter followers, the dissemination of our work through a whole set of networks. And then longer term, are we getting our ideas out to people so that they're rethinking the status quo and whether we can improve on the status quo? So again, I think much is in line with what Trish from CCPA indicated, but what I would add is that we have both short and long-term measures of success.
Gotcha. Thanks to the three of you for joining us on TVO tonight. Appreciate your time.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.